different time zones. Happy New Year. I would like to welcome you all to this 36th session of the South Sudanese Women Intellectual Forum, which is the second forum of the year 2021. My name is Margaret Matthew Matiang, a gender analyst at UNDP, and I'll be the moderator of this session. With much thanks to South Sudanese Women Intellectual Forum for the opportunity and UN Women South Sudan for hosting the panel discussion. Please note that this forum is live streamed on both Facebook and YouTube pages of SSWIF, and you are free to drop some comments and questions as the discussion goes on, and we will try to address some during the session if time allows. But before we proceed, allow me to send a condolence messages to South Sudanese women in general on behalf of SSWIF and on my own behalf for the passing of two South Sudanese women leaders, Honorable Judge Sabar Saba, the Deputy Chairperson of South Sudanese Election Commission, and Ms. Mary Kujo, the Acting DG for the Ministry of Gender, Child and Social Welfare, who contributed a lot to women's empowerment, and their demise came as a shock to most of us. May their souls rest in peace. Today's session is titled Women's Economic Empowerment in South Sudan, which is a very important topic as the country moves from recovery to development phase. Women economic empowerment is a prerequisite for sustainable development and for achieving the sustainable development goals. It's important that women, civil society, government, and the private sector understand that economic empowerment is a right. Therefore, initiatives such as investing in women through providing equal access to financial services is likely to give women more power over income and assets like land and technology. Professionalizing the caregiving sector can also help in accelerating progress in women's economic empowerment, especially in developing countries such as South Sudan. Women economic empowerment is also critical to achieving gender equality and sustainable development. Women are key contributors to economies as producers of food, managers of natural resources, and as entrepreneurs and employees. Additionally, women are the main providers of unpaid care and domestic work. Globally, women do 2.6 times the unpaid care and domestic work that do. Therefore, active measures are needed to comprehensively address the structural barriers and gender discriminatory practices that deny women their socioeconomic rights, restricts their economic, social, and political opportunities, and undermine their resilience to all forms of shocks. This requires addressing women's disproportionate burden of unpaid care work, including by engaging men in care work, ensuring women's equal rights to property, credits, land, and natural resources, decent work, and equal access to basic services, including health services. To help us unfold issues of women economic empowerment in South Sudan, we are privileged to have among us a panel of 5 distinguished and powerful South Sudanese women who are engaged in different sectors that promote women's economic empowerment in South Sudan. We are privileged to have among us Honorable Betty Oshan Ogwaro. Honorable Betty is a trained mediator and negotiator who previously served as one of the 5 members of the mediation team which negotiated a peace settlement between the Ugandan government and the Lord's Resistance Army, LRA, known as the Juba Peace Talks. I recently served as one of the 9 members of the leadership of the Steering Committee of the National Dialogue of South Sudan. Honorable Ogwaro held different portfolios and at different levels in the government of South Sudan. She was the Director of Animal Production in the regional government. She was also the Eastern Equatoria Minister of Agriculture, Forestry, and Community Development, and was appointed as the first South Sudanese National Minister of Agriculture, Forestry, and Community Development and Cooperatives, where she initiated the transformation of agricultural sector, starting with the zonal efforts for agricultural transformation and the Comprehensive Agricultural Master's Plan, CAMP, which led to the development of a 25 years master's plan, which was supported by the Japanese government. Honorable Ogwaro served as a member of the National Legislative Assembly in Juba, representing Magui County constituency of Eastern Equatoria State, and re-elected in May 2010 to to the current National Transitional Legislative Assembly. Honorable Oguaro is the founder of the South Sudanese Women Parliamentary Caucus, which is now a strong voice of women parliamentarians. She is also a co-founding member of the South Sudanese Women Leaders for Peace and South Sudanese Peace Networks and chairperson for the consortium of about 22 women organizations working for peace and development in South Sudan. Honorable Oguaro is also a member of the Regional Women Think Tank on Governance and Decision Making. And Honorable Oguaro holds a master's degree in veterinary science, that's why we call her doctor, from the University of Edinburgh in the UK, and qualified as general microbiologist from the University of Wolverhampton. Honorable Oguaro dedicated herself to advocating for women's rights, equal participation in decision-making at all levels, protection of women and girls during war and at all times, as well as promotion of women's rights through education and the UN Security Council Resolution 1325. Her hobby is farming. Honorable Betty, you are highly welcome.
Thank you.
Next, allow me to introduce you another honorable by the name of Betty, and that's Honorable Betty Imoyo. She is an economist by profession and a holder of an MSc in Financial Economics from University of Central Lancashire, England. She worked as financial analyst, senior economist, financial manager, and a treasurer with big institutions and organizations that includes our central bank. Honorable Betty served as the State Minister of Physical Infrastructure in the Imatong State of Eastern Equatoria during the 2 states. Honorable Betty, you are highly welcome to this forum. Allow me to also introduce our third panelist, who is Ms. Raja Gladys. Ms. Raja is an economist, lecturer, and researcher with over 8 years of accumulated experience. Raja is a detail-oriented critical thinker with elaborate analytical skills. She is also a team player with demonstrated communication and interpersonal skills. Currently, she is a program officer at Ebony Center. That's a think tank that we all know about. She's a lecturer also at the University of Juba, Faculty of Social and Economic Studies. She was a consultant at the Institute of Social Policy and Research at Action Against Hunger UK. Ms. Raja is a member of Public Finance Management Reform Technical Committee and co-opted member for Economic Crisis Management Committee, as well as a member of the Secretariat at the South Sudan National Dialogue. Previously, Ms. Raja worked as an operational manager at the Chapter 1 Bank in South Sudan. Ms. Raja is a holder of bachelor degree in economics and management from Uganda Christian University. She also has Masters of Economics Policy in Global Markets from Central European University. Raja's primary area of interest includes research, working with information and processes, motivating and influencing others. She is a founding member of Media and Research Organization in South Sudan, EMROS. Ms. Raja, you are highly welcome to this forum.
Thank you.
Our first panelist is Antioch Martha Agot, who is also an economist and currently working as an assistant director at Microeconomic Department, Ministry of Finance and Planning, Republic of South Sudan, a specialist at the Research Zone on Microeconomic Models and the Impact to Economy. Ms. Nyantiop is an author of 2 publications. One is Analysis of the Primary School Enrollment in South Sudan, and her second publication is Impact of Budget Deficit in Accelerating Economic Growth Case of Uganda Economy. Ms. Nyantiop is a holder of master's degree in economics from University of Nairobi. You are highly welcome, Ms. Nyantiop. Finally, I am pleased to introduce you Ms. Jane Jackson Kisanga, who is currently working as an acting director in the Department of Women, Peace and Security and managing women economic empowerment at the National Ministry of Gender, Child and Social Welfare, Directorate of Gender, Jane is also a facilitator at the National Transformational Leadership Institute of Juba University, known as NTLI. Ms. Kiden worked for other organizations, namely Windrock International, in the capacity of gender officer in 2012 and in 2016. She was a program officer in the Directorate of Community Development. Furthermore, she worked for Agency for Cooperative and Research in Development, ACOT, South Sudan, as a team leader, gender mainstreaming officer. Jane is passionate about women and gender issues with wealth of experience. Ms. Jane is a holder of a master's degree in multicultural and interpersonal education from Oslo University College, and she has a diploma in human resource management from Cambridge International College and a bachelor's degree in organizational management from Al Ahfad University for Women in Khartoum, Sudan. You are highly welcome, Jane.
Thank you.
As mentioned earlier, our today's topic is on women economic empowerment in South Sudan, and we are now heading to our interaction session with the panelists. For the panelists, please do not forget to unmute your mic when presenting, and I'm going to give each one of you like around 3 to 4 minutes to answer each question. And I'm honored to direct my first question to Honorable Betty Ashan, and the question is going to be in the area of empowering women in commercial agricultural sector. Honorable Betty, women constitute the majority of farmers in South Sudan. At present, 83% of the population lives in rural areas, and 78% of the households depends on crops farming, which is dominated by women. Supporting women in agriculture can strengthen the economy by diversifying its sources of income. At the state level, training women and facilitating their access to employment will ensure the growth of human capital and state resources. We will therefore be pleased to hear your response to some of our questions. And the first question is, does South Sudan have a policy or policies for empowering the women of South Sudan economically? Are the policies being implemented? If not, why? If yes, why? Why not? If implemented, you could also give us the why and the why not of it. Another question that I would like you to respond to is, should the South Sudanese women be empowered economically? And what is the role of the South Sudanese National Legislative Assembly in the women's economic empowerment and in the economic development of South Sudan? Over to you, Honorable Betty.
Okay. Yeah, unmute. Yeah, it's unmute.
Honorable Betty, we are unable to hear you.
Able to unmute. Don't know.
Can you try? Can you try now?
I think you to go to the next person. I'm not to unmute.
Okay, maybe Robert can help us. We are unable to hear Honorable Betty. Maybe could assist her. Yeah. All right. Maybe then we can move to Honorable Betty Imoyo. Honorable Betty, I'm going to ask you a question in relation to policies. Through programs such as the South Sudan Development Plan, SSDP, the government of South Sudan has expressed commitment to include gender consideration in its planning process. The South Sudan Development Plan's economic development pillar prioritize rural development and emphasize a gendered approach to development. The SSDP justifies the gender emphasis on higher prevalence of female households in South Sudan. Additionally, the government of South Sudan's policies and legislations have also highlighted the importance of promoting women's economic rights. The microfinance policy and trade policy are examples of the government initiatives to acknowledge the gendered nature of economic development practices. Other progressive and gender-responsive laws include the Local Government Act and the Land Acts, which were developed during the CPA. These pieces of legislation, when matched with implementation and follow-up, will have positive implications for rights of women, political participation, and economic empowerment. Yeah, recent empirical global research by the World Economic Forum shows that empowering women can contribute to economic growth and that there is a strong correlation between gender equality and per capita gross domestic product. So we will be interested to hear your responses in, if you can tell us what is this South Sudan Development Plan and what is it for women. Additionally, we'll be glad to hear from you what kind of policies do South Sudan have for women's economic empowerment? Are there any specific policies targeting South Sudanese women entrepreneurs or women in business? Over to you, Honorable Betty Moyo.
Development policy. It started in 2011, and again it was updated in 2013. That development plan, it includes gender mainstreaming in relations to economic empowerment of women in South Sudan. So like we have a policy for women economic empowerment in South Sudan. This is what I'm trying to do. And it's also included in that plan. Secondly, the South Sudan Development Plan has 6 main pillars. And among these pillars, one of it is economic development. And economic development, of course, the core button of it is economic empowerment. And women economic empowerment is also especially, it emphasizes on rural development, because when we talk of women economic empowerment, we are talking about the vulnerable women. We are talking about those who are not able to access funding from any other sources. That's why they need to be empowered. So it's about rural development in another way, rural development of women, but with more emphasis on economic aspect. So we already have that one as one of the pillars in the country. This is another gender approach to economic empowerment of women. Number 3, there are already policies and legislations that promotes women economic empowerment in South Sudan. They are in place. We as South Sudanese, we are only remaining with the mechanism of implementing those policies we have already come up with. We need a mechanism, and it needs to be incorporated. It needs to be incorporated in the budget. We can talk of the policy, and if we write the policies as notes in the book, and when the time of annual budget comes and we don't translate the policy into actual plan by translating it into figures in the budget, then it will always remain like a paperwork policy, like a song being sung, and it remains without dancers. So we need to incorporate it from the policy. We need to translate it into figures so that we can now take the figures, the cash figures now, and give it to the women in the rural areas and urban women who are less privileged, like the ones with very low standard of income, or even some even have no any other sources of income. So this is what I can say. This is what it is for women. We have the policies in place, we have the legislations, but we just need things like mechanisms, and we need translation of these policies into figures, into the national budget, because as much as we know, in 2006, earlier there, or 2008, when Mary Kiden was Minister of Gender, there used to be this small money called Women Economic Empowerment, by the way, but it was stopped briefly, but it was there, and it was meant for all counties. So this is what I can say about it. Thank you. The second question was, what kind of policies South Sudan have for women economic empowerment? We have the microfinance credit policies, and we also have the trade policies. So the examples of policies that support economic empowerment, one of it is actually microfinance. Microfinance is the core button of women economic policy. As much of you are aware, microfinance started in 1976 in Bangladesh, but today it has helped many countries. As we are talking today, if you see our region, East Africa region, you will be surprised, because it's women who almost dominate all the market down there. All the agriculture, they're the ones selling things, not even agriculture alone. It's because of this microfinance. Secondly, the aim of microfinance, let me say the aim of microfinance is actually to alleviate poverty, to alleviate poverty from women and to improve the socio-economic status of vulnerable women in the society. Um, Laws like Government Act and Land Act, these are some progressive gender responses to women economic empowerment in this country. So women economic empowerment is also part of the policy for women economic development, by the way. So empowerment and development, I know people will say, what is the difference? But it has very slight difference. South Sudan business has formed themselves an association, South Sudan's business women. They have formed themselves an association called Women Enterprise, Women Entrepreneurs Association. It was coordinated. It was the World Bank that funded it, and with the help of the Ministry of Gender. So these are kinds of association that help our business entrepreneurs when they are carrying their trade, when they are involved in the trade, because there are policies issues also where they are in need. Like, how will they now go as a group to lobby maybe for funding to start their businesses? So they need an association. Development partners in this country also are supporting the women economic empowerment in South Sudan, because they have what is called the Sustainable Development Goal. That's number 10, that deals with reducing on inequality in the society. This sustainable SDG, Sustainable Development Goal, is started in 2015. So South Sudan is left behind by around 6 years, and it's supposed like the target is by 2030, at least there will be no person who is completely down. As all of us know that women are bigger in number all over the world, but yet they are poorer. They are supposed to be the richest of all because their number is even bigger. So that means there is inequality, there is economic inequality somewhere. So we need to get into this national economic policy so that we'll be able to deal with these economic inequalities. Thank you.
Enlightening us about the existing policies that support the women entrepreneurs, and also for telling us where we are in regards to the Development Agenda 2030. We have a lot to do. So I would like to go back to Honorable Betty Oguaro and ask you a similar question that I tried to ask you before. So Honorable Betty, are you able to hear me now? Betty Achan?
Oh,
Can you hear me?
I can hear.
Yeah, so I'm coming back to you again. I would like to ask you, does South Sudan have policies for empowering the women of South Sudan economically? This is besides some of the policies that were mentioned by Honorable Betty, the other Betty. Are the policies being implemented? Why and why not? And also, as a member of parliament, we'd like to know what is the role of the South Sudan National Legislative Assembly in the women's economic and the economic development of South Sudan. Over to you, Honorable Betty Ashan.
I have problem.
Can you try? I can hear you.
I'm trying to unmute, but I think this thing.
Yeah, we are able to hear you, Honorable. Go ahead. Honorable Betty, are you with us? Okay, we're still having problems. Can we move ahead and come to Ms. Raja Gladys, who is, we are going to ask her question related to women's economic development. Ms. Raja, the emergency of South Sudan as an independent state after a decade of war, while a momentous occasion, has to contend with several challenges related to economic empowerment of the South Sudan people as a whole and women in particular. 50 years of war has had severe impact on the economic development of South Sudan. In its inaugural Human Development Report ranking, South Sudan fared quite badly. This is understandable because as a post-conflict country, South Sudan is still confronted with the reality of attempting to satisfy competing development priorities. Women traders in South Sudan face a host of constraints to trade, ranging from lack of knowledge and capacity, lack of formal legal status, unclear economic policies, physical insecurity and harassment, and customs and trade barriers. Non-tariff barriers to trade also undermine women's participation in production and value addition. They include numerous license fees, limited access to capital, and affordable credit and foreign exchange, limited understanding of some of the regulations and technical standards, lack of access to inputs, etc., and many other issues. So we'd like to ask you, Ms. Raja, if you could tell us what is the economic empowerment and how does it relate to the women of South Sudan? Additionally, we will be glad to hear, should the South Sudanese women be empowered economically? Your opinion, please. Over to
Thank you, Margaret, and thank you, South Sudan Intellectual Women Forum, for the second invitation as a panelist online. I would like to first take us to how the OEDC define what economic empowerment means. This simply means the capacity of women and men to participate, contribute, and benefit from the growth processes in ways that recognize the value of their contribution, their respect to dignity, and make possible to negotiate their distribution of the benefits of growth. So this increases women's access to economic resources and opportunities that include jobs. And of course, when women and men are employed, that means they're able to have access to income. And once they have access to income, part of their income is taxed, by the government, which is a source of revenue to the government. And the government therefore use this revenue to provide services to the people, for today, to the people of South Sudan. Opportunities like financial services, and these financial services include the credit, property and other productive assets, skill development, and market information. So market information is a very critical factor here. When women have access to market information, then they'll be able to know what kind of product should they supply to the economy or to the market. What is the preferences of the consumers. So therefore, a women economic empowerment is a necessary condition for sustainable development, and it's a right to everyone. So what about the Oxfam's definition of women economic empowerment? It simply means that women enjoy their rights to control and benefit from resources, as I mentioned earlier on. Resources may be land, resources may be finances, and they are able to develop the assets. Like say if you obtain a land and you have the finances, you'll be able to construct, put structures and rent out, and therefore you have income. When women have the ability to manage the risk and improve their economic status and well-being, this is what it means by economic empowerment. So women should have also the autonomy and self-beliefs to make changes in their own lives, having the agency and the power to organize and influence decisions while enjoying the equal rights to men and freedom from violence. This focuses on women's ability to gain and control the productive resources and recognized as the participant of the economic actors. As earlier when I mentioned that when they are employed in the business sector, that means they're able to pay the taxes from their sales. When they're employed at the public sector or at the private sector, they're able to pay their personal income tax to the government. And even out of the profits that they get, they provide for their families. They send their children to school. They're able to cover the bills. At the family level, when incidents happens, like in South Sudan, the mortality rate is high. Women are able to contribute during issues of sicknesses, issues of funerals. At the state level, they're able to be a source of revenue. So it is really, really important that women economic empowerment should be looked into. How does this relate to South Sudan? Investing in women sets a direct path towards gender equality, poverty reduction, and inclusive economic growth. So, as I mentioned earlier on, women makes numerous contributions to the economy, whether being in business or in the agriculture sector, or as entrepreneurs or employees, or even at the family level where they are not paid, like the domestic work that is not paid. This is a very important contribution to the economy. So therefore, I can quote from Barack Obama. He states, "When women succeed, nations are most safer, secure, and prosperous. Therefore, when women of South Sudan are empowered economically, we shall succeed. We shall have a safe South Sudan and secure and prosperous country." Let me just move to the next second question that was directed to me. Should the South Sudanese women be empowered? Yes, I already stated that it should be empowered so that women have access to livelihood and economic resources. And they have to increase, their income, build their assets, wealth, and even come as business leadership or leaders, because when they, as Honorable Betty Moy mentioned, that the women of South Sudan have created a forum on how to, come together and do business, and this one has emerged to business leadership, which is very, very important, and they're able to make their decisions at all levels of life. So, empowering women is the key to building the future of South Sudan we want, as stated by Sen, one of the Nobel Prize winner in economics. Thank you very much.
This inspiring sharing. One of the things that you have mentioned is that women economic empowerment is a right. And this is a very powerful statement, because when women join in economic empowerment, we have a better South Sudan. And also, I like what you have mentioned, that when we empower women, we will have a safe South Sudan. So issues of women economic empowerment comes also with issues of peace and security. Thank you so much for sharing with us that. And I'm going to move to Madam Jane Kiden Kisanga from the Ministry of Gender. Jane, are you able to hear me? Then I ask you the question, just to confirm.
Yes, yes, I'm hearing Margaret.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, Jane, the government of South Sudan so far has taken several steps to empower women economically in various sectors, and the Ministry of Gender has played a great role in that. I recall the Ministry of Gender, with funding from the World Bank, disseminated grants to about 109 women organizations or businesses who started small businesses in all 10 states. So my questions to you is, what is the mandate of the Ministry of Gender? And what is the role of the Ministry of Gender in economic empowerment of women in South Sudan? Are there any policies developed by the Ministry of Gender, and how do these policies relate to women economic empowerment in South Sudan? Over to you, Jen.
Thank you, Margaret. First of all, allow me to thank South Sudanese Women Intellectual Forum for having me at this moment. And I also want to extend my gratitude to my minister who have asked me to come and join this forum. The Ministry of Gender is one of the machineries in the national government that is to ensure gender equality and social justice at all aspects of life, that is politically, economically, and socially. So the role of the Ministry of Gender, Child and Social Welfare in Economic Empowerment, as per our action plan, is to promote appropriate policy, legal framework, and mechanisms for women economic empowerment. That is mainstream gender analysis and gender responsive budgeting in all microeconomic policies and related legislations to ensure women and men benefit equitably from the economy of this country. We are also looking at gender mainstreaming in the development of micro, small, and medium enterprise with a particular attempt in women and youth. And that we are focusing mostly also on rural women and the farmers in urban youth and women, small, medium enterprises. The ministry is also looking at creating enabling business environment and enhancing women's skills in training, especially business coaching and advisory services for women, entrepreneurs, including functional literacy, establishment of a women bank and women empowerment trust fund, and strengthen other financial services such as village saving and loan association or schemes, with a view to eliminating gender inequality in accessing capital or credit. Some of the policies, the most important policy is the gender policy that looks at, we have economic empowerment as one of the pillars. We have 8 pillars, and economic empowerment is one of the pillars that our policy is looking at, and mostly looking at how to advocate in empowering women in different ways. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
Yes.
thank you very much. If we could also hear some additional information beside what was presented by the previous presenter. Should the South Sudan women be empowered economically? You have mentioned the role of the ministry, but now we come to the issues of South Sudanese women. Your opinion, please, of should the South Sudanese women be empowered economically and why? And what is the role of the Ministry of Gender in economic empowerment or economic development in South Sudan?
Thank you, Margaret. I think just to add into what the previous colleagues have said, South Sudanese economic empowerment for women is very important for so many reasons. Based on our reports, that during conflict, we realize that most of the women are the ones shouldering the responsibilities of the families. And men are engaged in conflict. Some of them are redundant. They are just staying at home. But when you go around Juba, you will find that even at your doors, you will find that women are selling something small to keep the family. So for me, it's very important to see that women are empowered. This empowerment will help them. It's a prerequisite, by the way. It will help for sustainable development, 1. 2, it will develop these women who are selling petty trade in the market and the streets. It will boost their businesses. So it is very important for women to have skill, knowledge for their business growth. It is also important for them to be professional. You know, they are just, the situation has forced most of our women to get into businesses. Traditionally, you can know when we were with Sudan, most of us were not in businesses. But now we have come to businesses. Our women are now in businesses. So they need to be professionalized. The area of their businesses, for those who are doing agriculture, we need to ensure that they have tools, they are empowered, knowledge-wise, to add value into their products. So empowerment will introduce women to different types of technologies also, where now you can see that most of the people are going into digital planning, digital production. So our women need to be empowered so that they will join the other world together. Because if you look at I once went for a study tour in Uganda, and you can see that women are doing a lot. Why are they doing so? Because they are empowered. So for me, I looked at empowerment of women is very, very, very important.
Thank you very much, Jane, for giving us the background of what the Ministry of Gender's mandate is. It's indeed doing a great job in South Sudan, and wish you all the best. And thank you also for highlighting the issue of professionalism. You can be in the market, but if you're not professional, you will not move forward. This is really a very strong point. And then you also, empowerment will introduce us to other things like digital. I have seen so many South Sudanese women and young men and women all advertising their products on Facebook or in other forums. This is really a transformation, and we hope for the best for our country, South Sudan. I would like to go to Honorable Betty Aguero. If you can hear me, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right. I just want to go back to the question that I wanted to ask you. Women constitute the majority of farmers. You mentioned one of your hobby to be farming. So I'm just saying women constitute the majority of farmers in South Sudan at present. 83% of the population lives in rural areas, and 78% of the households depend on crops farming, which is dominated by women. Supporting women in agriculture can strengthen the economy by diversifying its source of income at the state level. Training women and facilitating their access to employment will ensure the growth of human capital and state resources. We will therefore be pleased to hear some insights from you, first in your role as an agriculturalist and also in your role as a member of the parliament. So if you could tell us, beside what other sisters mentioned, what are the other policies for empowering the women of South Sudan economically that you know about? And should the South Sudanese women be empowered economically? This is a question that I gave to all the panelists who spoke before you. And what is the role of the South Sudan National Legislative Assembly in the women's economic empowerment and in the economic development of South Sudan? Over to you, Honorable Betty Okwara.
Thank you so much, Honorable Margaret. I would like to thank my viewers, and I'm sorry because the technology failed me a little bit earlier. But to answer your question, yes, South Sudan economy is based on agriculture. More than 80% of the population live in the rural area, and they live on agriculture. 78%, as you said, of the people live on farming, but 60% of the 78 are women. So now your question is, do we have any policy to empower these women? Yes, South Sudan have a policy for empowering women economically. Number one, the Constitution of South Sudan, in the Bill of Rights of the Constitution, Section 14, 1 to 4, it guarantees equal rights of men, so that women can access to education, employment, ownership of assets, wages, but also to productive resources. And these productive resources are mainly in the agricultural field. And then we have the revitalized agreement on the resolution of conflict in South Sudan, the RCs, in Chapter 4, subsection 48.4, on agriculture, livestock, fisheries, wildlife, and tourism. It also empowers the community and women equal to men to get access to resources. In section 415.1, of the Enterprise Development Fund in the peace agreement, and subsection 4:15.15 on establishment of Women Enterprise Development Fund. This is also another policy that empowers women economically. Then we have in the Ministry of Agriculture, the South Sudan Comprehensive Agriculture Master Plan, which was developed from 2011 to 2015. It's a 25 years comprehensive agricultural master plan. In the master plan, in chapter 8, on gender issues, it clearly states the empowerment of women in agriculture. And then chapter 14 of the comprehensive agriculture master plan on the cross-cutting issues, section 14.3.2 also talks about treating women equally to men in getting empowered to produce agriculture and improve in agricultural production. Then you have chapter 18 of the comprehensive agriculture master plan. There is the legal and gender policy. It also empowers women in agriculture so that they are economically empowered. Then we have the legislation which is included in the Agricultural and Cooperative Banks of South Sudan, South Sudan Acts. They also give equal access to credit and irrespective of gender. So women also here are empowered that they can get credit from these banks. The legislation stipulates that 40% of the credit should be destined for small farmers. And we know that the small farmers are really women. So women here have the opportunity to get empowered through getting the credit so that they can improve their enterprise. We then have, after the CPA, there were other policies that were developed, although not fully implemented. There's the forestry policy of 2017, 2007, which was revised in 2012. The forest policy also empowers women because women are the major managers of forestry. And we know that mismanagement of forestry also leads into environmental deterioration. Then we have the National Agriculture and Livestock Extension Policy of 2007. It was also revised in 2012. And then in the 8th strategy, 2007, Margaret, are you listening? Hello? Hello? Is it cut off or am I on still?
I am listening to you, but I don't know whether Margaret it's like Margaret is not getting you.
Yeah, it was like I was talking to myself here also. Okay, and now, are the policies are these policies being implemented? Largely, no. None of these policies are being implemented. So therefore, we are talking of women empowerment, but the policies that empowers women are not being implemented. There is a weak public sector capacity for service delivery. So it is not enhancing the implementation of the policy. There is also insignificant public and private investment in agriculture. So even when the ministries have the policies or the government have the policies, but because the public and private sectors investment is very low, So people had to look at those policies. And the Ministry of Finance is also not supporting the Ministry of Agriculture with the budget enough for it to empower the agricultural sector, especially the women's sector. There is also a lot of bureaucracy. Therefore, it makes these policies not to be implemented. You also ask the question, should South Sudanese women be economically empowered? I would say big yes. It is obvious that if the majority of the people are the one producing in agriculture, they definitely need to be empowered. And also empowering women economically, it will give the women a voice and a choice. Because if women are economically empowered, they have the voice to say no or yes, and they have the choice to choose what they want to eat, to choose where they want to live, to choose how they want to live. One of the rights of women is embedded in the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, the CEDAW. And the CEDAW has been ratified by South Sudan. And the Bill of Rights in the Constitution, Section 16, 1 to 4, also accords women the rights to empowerment. I'm not sure if the network is working and you're hearing me. Are you hearing me, Margaret? Hello?
Yeah, hello. I can hear you, Honorable. I can hear you.
Yeah. So, and then I will move on to your next question, which asks, what's the role of the National Legislative Assembly in women's economic empowerment? The Transitional National Legislative Assembly play the role of monitoring and oversight to the relevant ministries where economic empowerment is supposed to take place. And in the assembly, they also have specialized committees that help in monitoring and oversight of these ministries. We have the Specialized Committee for Agriculture and Rural Development. This committee's role is to see that the ministries relevant, like the Ministry of Agriculture, the Ministry of Animal Resources, the Ministry of Environment, the Ministry of Water and Dams, the Ministry of Irrigation, empowers women in the field of agriculture. Then there is the Committee for Economy. The Committee of Economy normally looks at the budget when it comes to the parliament. Is it gender-sensitive budget? And it scrutinizes the budget of the ministries relevant. Like the Ministry of Gender, does it have a budget that can support women and especially empowers women? The Ministry of Agriculture, does it put in its budget empowerment of women in agriculture? So these committees in the Legislative Assembly scrutinizes the budget and make sure that they ask the ministries to empower women. Then we have also oversight for the Ministry of Gender under the Specialized Committee for Gender and Child Welfare. This committee also critically looks at the policy of the Ministry of Gender and the budget of the Ministry of Gender, whether they are empowering women. Then we have the Committee for Rural and Water Development, and we also have the Committee for Constituency Development Fund, where the committee makes sure that the programs that are being developed using this CDF is gender sensitive, is also addressing empowerment of women. And also we have the Committee for Public Accountability. The Committee for Public Accountability is also to look at the accountability of the expenditure of the spending ministries. Have they really utilized this public budget on women and on empowering women, especially on agriculture, because we know the mainstay is agriculture. Finally, we have the Women Caucus, which is not part of the main Transitional Legislative Assembly Committee, but it is a body within the assembly that really is looking at the women issues and making sure that women are empowered, women are trained, women are educated, women are supported.
Thank you very much, Honorable Betty, for highlighting the existing policies and also the oversight committees in the Parliament that helps us in the implementation of these policies and for passing the policies. Yeah, and one of the issues that you mentioned, which is still lingering into my mind, is that economic empowerment gives women a voice and a choice. So it's always a matter of choice. You can have all the empowerment, but if you don't make the choice of moving forward with the economic empowerment efforts, personal, at the community and the national level, then the efforts are not enough. So thank you very much. We'll come back to you with some more questions. I'm going to move now to our sister, Ms. Martha. Martha, my question to you is going to be in the area of women informal traders and cross-border trades. Women have, as you might be aware, women have taken up jobs in retail and trade, selling locally produced and imported agricultural items. These women are largely present in the market in Juba. You can see them in Juba, in the small towns, in some of the border areas. They are small-scale individual traders operating at a micro level and are credited for mitigating the impact of conflicts by creating employment opportunities and enhancing income and food security for their families. If you can talk to us and tell us what is this informal trade and cross-border trade. We hear a lot about it, but it's good that we have somebody like you to tell us more about it. Who are the people mostly involved in informal trade and cross-border trades, and what contribution do these traders make into the cross-development product, into the gross development products, which is GDP of a country like our country, South Sudan? A second question related to the first one is: do you think the informal trade and cross-border trades are an important part of economic development in South Sudan? Go ahead, over to you, Martha.
Thank you very much, Honorable Margaret and the panels. Generally, I appreciate the invitation for the first time, and I think if this progress well, I will continue to appreciate the invitation for the next. In fact, I appreciate the question also sent to me, and I may say informal trade is just a trade which is actually prevailed to exclude any illegal activities that are provided. It can be stated in a national wise that whoever is involved in informal trade the activities which are actually legal but not illegal. The trading strategy is based on whether it's a retail trade, the wholesale trade, or the vacuum of this whole trade. It is actually prevail in South Sudan here generally, mostly in Juba. We are seeing a lot of informal trade which is being carried out in all the markets. So women, men are the one actually involved in these trading patterns. So in general, if you can just survey the whole market or the whole street of Juba or other countries perspective, you may see that there are some street trading patterns. There is also public places trading patterns, and we call them informal trade because they are trading within the section, and then they are legally, not illegally involving. Now, when I said these informal traders, what do they provide? They actually provide income to those who are unemployed. They also provide the varieties of goods and services to the rest of the people who are living down line in terms of poverty alleviation. Now, when we go back to see the gearing mechanism, we also differentiate it with the cross-border trade. And the cross-border trade, I can term it as international trade. And with this basis, I may also define it as the exchange of goods and services among the countries. For example, you may say when South Sudanese involve themselves with the Uganda trading partners as a partner traders, then we can say South Sudanese may go to Uganda and buy goods, and Uganda may also export their goods and import their goods, the same thing like that. So now, people involved in this are actually retail traders, women in South Sudan. Now, what do they contribute to the GDP? The question is, generally in the rest of the world, we may say that formal sectors, especially the high developed economies, is that they contribute around 60% to the GDP in perspective. I have seen the survey which was made in sub-Saharan African countries. Private sector or private informal trade contribute a lot to the GDP. Unlike in South Sudan here, whereby GDP compilation is done by what we call expenditures approach. And in that, it has not details out what is the contribution of this trade to the GDP or the traders to the GDP. But my colleague has discussed it very well that when these people are conducting their businesses, they actually involved in employment opportunities. And once you are employed, it increases your income. And once your income increases, the government come in and tax that income at the same time as the private income tax. And also at the same time, the government tax the profits that you earn from the businesses that you're carrying out. Now, that I can say it, they contribute much to the GDP if South Sudan carried out the production approach to the contribution of GDP. But I have not got the clear contribution of this because we are using a pernicious approach. Why is this one very important that South Sudanese should involve themselves in cross-border trade and informal trade? Number one, it is one of the scoop. It provides us with the variety of the item check here, though we are relying much on the imported goods from abroad. It gives us an opportunity to see an avenue of different goods which are not produced here in South Sudan. So in this case, it helps us actually to bring down or alleviate this kind of poverty, which is erratically dominating the economies of South Sudan, especially the women. So in this, I may say cross-border trade also help South Sudanese women by also seeing exactly what is going on in the other country. How do they trade? So it is a learning avenue. And it also empowers us to have this self-employment. Yes, of course, we cannot realize that the government sector contribute much in terms of employment. So self-employment give you an avenue to be a powerful person in the economy. It raises the standard of living to the people. Of course, if you are given whatever given out anything in your economy or given out to you by your counterpart, definitely your ways of living will a little bit rise once it is provided to you, all these goods. So the elevation of poverty is what is being discussed before. Now, the next question which I may say it, or I may go in, is whether the private sector components of South Sudan may actually elevate what we call economic development and growth, or empowering of women economically in South Sudan. As I spoke before, that of course private sector involvement in economy policies is the gearing mechanism on economic growth and development. In that, let us see the contribution of these different private sectors. If you could see the Indian economy, how it operates, the South African economy, how it operates. Private sectors contribute a lot to the GDP, and in that, they help in calming a situation of budget deficit. You see, we are alarming a huge budget deficit every time in South Sudan. So putting in a much effort on the women empowerment, and at the same time involving the private sectors in terms of calming the situation of the budget or reducing it, it can actually help the country rather than we all the time involving ourselves to look for foreign assistance or foreign donation or foreign loans. Why not putting our private sectors to help us in calming the situation? Creating the job itself, it is one of the most important things. Government cannot do that alone. The job which the private sector can create is one of the most reliable source, and it has a lot of okay, the payment itself is a bit higher than the government pays. So we say it employs a lot of employees in that. So involving women actually also is a gearing mechanism to economic development. As my colleague spoke before, that women are the best managers, the good producers of any food items, whether in agriculture or whether in the other sectors. Domestic workers, as she said, they do well. So in this, women, if you could just see the women surveys which was conducted by UN, they read out that in the procurement processes and in the procurement processes, also in the managerial fields, women were rated to have a lot of contribution in terms of transformation and changing the management sectors or the local private investment which was actually involved. So when saying that, I may say involvement or empowering women by giving them a leverage can actually increase economic development in this country, like South Sudan. The next one is the strategies which are supposed to be used to encourage or to include women in informal sectors or informal sector. Strictly, I can go into national development strategy, which Honorable Betty discussed before. And in that, it is guided by 4 guiding principles. First one is peace, security, rule of law, and then the second one is democracy, good governance. And the third one, which I will actually concentrate in, is the social economic development, which actually given us the hinge of women in the informal sector or empowering women in the informal sector. So these policies are not supposed to be put on granted. They are supposed to be implemented. If anything, put in the national development plan like that is one of the objectives. So I may say women should be involved by at least showing up some of the advertisement which they have in order to show to people that yes, they are doing well in a different in different areas of the economy. Now, the association which was actually formed is not enough. They should be funded, and we can call them South Sudan self-employees women association. If they are empowered, if they are given some critical advantages, they can actually do well in that area. Also, the motivation of women, I may say, yes, of course, women should be motivated in different organizations. Is one of the policy which I see if any organization is actually given opportunity to include or to recruit more ladies, and then giving them a point that them the point that their salaries can be increased a little bit, giving them a leave, say the maternity leave, for example, and then I think it will be of a motivation that they will gain at least a high contribution to any kind of the development in South Sudan. And again, within that organization, I may say tax holidays or taxes are supposed to be lowered by the government or by, yes, the government in it, in fact. So women in South Sudan have a lot of challenges in terms of trade. Yes, of course, I can say that there are a lot of challenges. Let me say with the low capital that the women are having or the business are operating. If you see the access to credit here in South Sudan, the banking system actually is not inadequate, is not actually adequate. The loan which they are supposed to offer is not also that adequate that can support the businesses. So I may say I have seen in the objective of the central bank that they are going to increase interest rate. So increasing interest rate domestically in another way around, it tell us that rejection of the traders. So they will not have access to the loan in commercial banks. And even if they have access to loan in commercial banks, still the economy is destabilized in terms of inflation. So their businesses will be not doing very well. Also, I may say the accessibility and the taxes which are actually offered by the government. Yes, most of them, they are facing a lot of challenges in terms of multiple taxes. You may go in and then, yeah, you may go in challenges, yes, if you are following me. That is number 5, challenges. It's okay. So if you could just see here in different footage of markets in Juba, you move here and then they ask you pay tax, pay sale tax here. So this is very challenging. Women are not having avenue of at least to have profits in their organization. It's really terrible here in South Sudan. The business mindset of the people here also is a little bit challenging. Our women should also be given a hinge of training so that they go up with a productive avenue. So majority of women are actually having the challenges in that. And you know them, they are oriented, they are located in different areas. Mostly they are in in rural areas. So their accessibility of bringing all these goods to town is also challenging in terms of the road construction. So all in all, I may say it, in my recommendation as stipulated here is that South Sudan development strategy is a Bible. And since if it is a Bible, we have to speak louder here. And speaking louder, it is something related to implementations. As Honorable Betty Moya put it on, all the policies which are put there, if they are not followed, if people are not serious, they will not be actually having an inch to the economy. They will not actually give us a better Yes. Yes. So I may say it, in my last statement is that funding of girl child education in South Sudan is the prerequisite, and then private partnership, private public partnership is an aid to economic growth and development. If South Sudan is given a hint to progress with the growth. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sister Martha. You have really taken us through a lot. And some of the opinions from the panelists is that we should work harder on the implementation of the peace process to enable us to reach the rural women who are doing a lot. And also that we should work hard on the implementation of the peace to enable us to reach not only the rural women, but also others. And then the real agro producers are the majority and they are in the rural setting. So thank you very much for touching in that and for also giving us some information on the cross-border trade issue and encouraging South Sudanese women to try that trade. And you mentioned the issue of job creation, which comes also with this kind of businesses. And you mentioned that women need to be motivated. And the motivation, in my opinion, comes in many ways. The issues of, for example, receiving loans and so forth. So I would like to go back to some of the economists in this panel, and I go back to Honorable Betty Imoyo. Honorable Betty, that the government has funding to support microfinance and business activities, especially for women in South Sudan? And does the government work with the development partners to support local businesses, especially those owned by women in South Sudan? Betty Imoyo, over to you. Kindly unmute Betty, Honorable Betty, so that we can hear you.
Someone unmuted it, so hello.
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Yes, let's start by the first question. Does the government has funding to support microfinance and business activities, especially for women in South Sudan? No, a big no. There is no particular or there is no special funding by the government that is specifically meant for microfinance or for business activities, even if we check the budget. So there is absolutely no particular money. Another answer is that sometimes it happens that money just comes. I don't know what the sources is. We shall just hear there was money approved for those who are willing to do businesses. So maybe from development partners, we don't know, but it's not like a clear thing, you know. Even though sometimes the government might have some of this kind of fund, but there is no clear mechanism in place, you know, mechanism that can ascertain the credibility of the usage of the said fund for the intended purposes, which is the purpose to develop the women economically. Thirdly, there was, as I said earlier, there was small funding. That was the one I knew. That came up, was it earlier in 2000 something, when Mary Kiden was the minister, and it went to all the states. It was supposed to continue and grow, but I think somewhere there it was battered. It was not anymore there. Right now, the Ministry of Gender, I think, is trying to work so hard to try to see that it translates the policy which says women economic empowerment to really practice by incorporating it into the national budget. Like in some countries in Kenya, Uganda, I have met, by the way, some of these former and probably present Minister of Gender, and I had discussed, because it's burning somewhere, about the importance of translating the policy, into the budget. We can talk about the policy. We want, yes, economic empowerment and have a beautiful policy, national economic policy plan. But if we don't have the translation into figure, the budget for it, then we shall be doing a double standard. It's time to walk the talk. So there have been a lot of talk about maybe some people here. Honorable Betty Ogara said before, there are things to do with the capacity. Yes, so this is what I realized too. There is a serious issue of capacity. People want to talk things that they don't know how to go about it. So if we are in need of help, there are a lot of experts outside there. If we don't believe in our experts, we bring them and we ask them, how did you do yours in your country? So it's time to walk the talk. Regarding the implementation, it has been said, even the ARCES, the agreement, talks about Women Enterprise Development Fund. So we need that one to get into the constitution and to get into the national budget, whereby we know that this percent or this amount is for this particular program for women economic empowerment, whatever name they have given. So it has to be something, and we'll see it going equally to the grassroots. It has to be like seeds which have been sown down. It should not always end up somewhere. It has to go even from Payams. It has to come from there, because that's a small administrative unit in the country, from Payams to counties to state, and so that we see it equally. Just like when you're going to sow what, cultivate. So it has a you put the seeds all around. So those which will germinate, and germinating is the economic growth we are talking about. It's important for price stability in the long run. This inflation we are crying now will not be there at the time these women will get this kind of funding, especially for. I concur with my sister, with Honorable Ajede Daguaro. If we correlate that one, the policy and its practicality, then it will really help and help the women so much. Like microfinance started many years ago, and I had said before that it has helped a lot of countries even to boost economically. You see, to boost economically. When you see Uganda, Kenya, many women are in the market. They are selling a lot of things. They are being supported properly by a policy that nobody plays around with. Nobody can go to Kenya and say, now, this year we have political instability. The priority is security. No. We women did not create this kind of things. Thank you. The second question is, how does the government work with development partners to support local business, especially those funded by women? Yes, we have local, we have these development partners, by the way, like African Development Bank, World Bank, JICA, USAID, and many others that are not mentioned here, that are actually dealing with this women economic empowerment, because it is SDG, it is a Sustainable Development Goal number 10. So we also, if we as a country do not have ours in our own budget, just imagine how will you be able to monitor a visitor? They can even bring the money and go back with it. Someone one day told me African Development Bank was having this kind of money. I'm not criticizing any other organization, but we need to bring the pool together. Let's pull out this fund together somewhere. We need to pull it together. If African Development Bank has got money, with a World Bank, with whoever, let's see the amount that they are contributing, and let's see the one of the government. We put the fund somewhere, and a mechanism has to come out of that, so that we now work the talk. Development partners had also supported, as I said, some of them, I know they have supported this Women Enterprise, Women Entrepreneurs Association. I had attended some of their workshops. They have supported, they are there, they are ready, but we have to know what they are doing. We need to help, to even promote them and support them. They want to see also accountability. That is very important. These kind of things. We need training in these areas. There are a lot of things. They can choose what they want to do. Training is also very necessary. Development partners, the question regarding how do they collaborate with the government. they do collaborate because there's no development partner that will bring women economic empowerment or any other project without the approval of the government. They have that coordination. They will go to the line ministries or to the relevant ministries, then they will tell their program, and they will share where they are going to implement. Even in the workshops, when they are coming out with the plan, they normally invite this line ministries so that they have a joint plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Betty. It is really true that the development partners have been supporting us in many ways, and the recommendation that you are giving, that the need to improve on coordination by pulling the resources together, is very, very, very important. I want to also seek the opinion of another economist, and that's our sister, Raja Gladys. Kindly, I also want to hear your opinion on whether access to microfinance is important for South Sudanese women, and and what strategies do you think South Sudan should use to encourage and include women in the economic development? Over to you, Raja.
Thank you, Margaret, once again. Your question is access to microfinance important for the South Sudanese women? I would say yes, because microfinance is a tool used for poverty reduction and empowerment of women. So we only have few microfinance institutions that I might mention. One of it is BRAC, that was originated from India, from Bangladesh, and it has been helping most of the rural women, even the urban women. We have the roofing, and then we have the South Sudan microfinance. So if I've not mentioned some of them, you can just add the list. So microfinance is actually important. When women have access to credit, it enables them to start businesses, ventures, and then therefore they will participate in the economy, as earlier on explained by my fellow economists, Marta and Betty, that when these women are involved, they are the profit tax, they are the sale tax, there is this private income tax, and then even the public income tax. And these are all sources of revenue that will contribute later on to the GDP of the economy. So therefore, when women have this business and they're participating, they build confidence, and they improve their status. That make them more active in decision making, hence encourage gender equality. When, for instance, when I'm at home and I contribute something for the betterment of the family, and also my husband contributes something for the betterment of the economy or of the family, that means there is, at the family level, there's gender equality, and that translates to the community, the state, and the national level. So when we have access to microfinance, it encourages the entrepreneurial activities by providing relevant supplementary knowledge. For instance, I was working in what they used to call Sudan Microfinance Institution. It's no longer existing now. I was a loan officer some years ago, 2004. And what happened usually is that these women, they are grouped into ranging from 6 to 10 L 12 members. So they come, they approach the microfinance officers, and then they are trained. When they're trained on skills of how to keep records, of their businesses. How much stock do you have today? How much have you sold? How much is the profit? How much are you supposed to repay the loan? And how much are you to keep as savings? So this will support to help the borrowers become effective entrepreneurs. And this is very, very vital in the women economic empowerment. So once they are effective entrepreneurs, that means that it increases the women employment in the private sector. You know, like for instance, in Juba Town, most of these local restaurants are owned by women, and they employ their fellow women to come and help them cook or wash dishes. At the end of the day, they are paid their daily wage, and this daily wage will be used by this person who earn the income to support the family. You see, so access to microfinances is a very, very important aspect. So from the microfinance institutions, they also gain because they at least charge a little interest rate on top of the loan that they're giving to the clients. And of course, this loan multiply, and then they also create extend more lending facilities to other women who are new recruits or new clients. So I can go to the next question, like what strategies should I recommend for South Sudan, to use so that we realize women as part of the economic development. So first of all, I would like to say that as Betty Emoy has mentioned, that we really have to walk the talk. And this means that we have to increase the voice of women at the household level, at the community level, at the state, in the economic institution, at the private sector, as well as at the political space, because when all women are represented at different levels, then they're able to help each other on how to help we realize the economic development. Build partnership that leads to ownership in the local system. I would use here a local model of, I call it Nimule model. When DCA helps SPEDA, that is one of the local organizations, provide farm tools, seeds, even credit to the farmers or the groups that form themselves together, and then they meet weekly or bi-weekly. They charge themselves just a small interest rate, like 10%, every 2 weeks they meet together and then they contribute 500, and this money, they use it to lend to their fellow members, and their fellow members can either use to buy more seeds or more tools so that they continue with the farming and they enlarge the farms, or either others go to buy goods. Those ones who are engaged in the business, they buy goods and then they sell at the market. Others even, they go and do fishing, buy more nets, fishing nets, so that they produce or they fish more fish for the market. So that model is really, really very effective. And if we could check that model to some parts of South Sudan, then gradually we will be there and we will reach our goal. Another strategy should be inclusive market system development, that that involves both female and male, not like, so when we are forming the groups, at least should be two male, two female, so that we learn skills from each other, and strategies, and we cope one another. Of course, in South Sudan right now, I can say that most of these women empowerment programs are basically funded by the humanitarian organizations. The government has little hand into that, but still, the private sector should step in. The powerful businessmen and women, if they are doing well, they should really come into it and expand the idea or explain the idea of the women empowerment.
Okay.
So another thing that I really want to mention is that the system approach to overturn the barriers, like the obstacles that do not make women realize the economic rights and changing social norms, you know,
Like for instance, if I am married, I'm here talking of a rural lady or rural woman who has no say. If you want to do any business, you really have to ask first your spouse to give you a permission to continue. And if he doesn't, say yes, then you will have to remain home. So at least some of these obstacles, you should be able maybe to explain maybe at the churches or with the traditional leaders on how women should progress slowly, economically, so that we realize our dream as women of South Sudan. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, Mr. Raja, thank you so much. We will address the challenges and recommendation as our last question shortly. But I just want to hear the voice of the Ministry of Gender. A lot has been said in the issue of the microfinance. I want to direct my question to Jane Kiden Kisanga from the Ministry of Gender. If you want to add your voices to the issue of the microfinance, you can do so. However, I would like to ask you to tell us what strategies do you think South Sudan, including the Ministry of Gender, Child and Social Welfare, use to encourage and include women in the informal sectors?
Yeah, thank you, Margaret. First of all, I would like to go to Betty Omayo, Honorable Betty, on the issue of policies. Let us translate policies into action. Indeed, the issue is not about the translation of the policies into action, but the issue is the finance. Because when we look at all the institutions, all the government institutions, they do their budgets. But when this budget are submitted, they are approved. But now release of this operation money is not there. This is a big issue that we need to address if we want to support women or to achieve development. That means finance should be working on that seriously, because every year we are depending on our partners. We are not having operational money, only chapter one. So this is an issue that I want to talk on. Even if you do everything, you have all the strategies. You have mentioned, the previous speakers have mentioned very good strategies. But now, how can we implement these strategies if we don't have resources? This is a very big question for us. Yes, as Ministry of Gender, we have a lead strategies. One of the strategies is the capacity building and skill development in business entrepreneurs that include business training, coaching, and advisory services for women entrepreneurs. And also literacy, functional literacy and training in business. We are also doing that in financial management. This is one of the strategy. Another strategy, we are looking at encouraging financial services such as village saving loan, which Martha has, is it Martha? Martha has just said. It's very important for us, these group cooperatives. These are very important strategies that helps women to come together. They share ideas, they even share their resources together. And as ministry, we are encouraging that, and we are working with the national organization on that mostly, and Ministry of Agriculture too. We as ministry also, we are spearheading the establishment of women enterprise development fund. And in this strategy, we have started working on the model that we are going to use. We have showcases models of Bangladesh. We have gone to Kenya, and now we have developed ours. It's also issue of resources, but we are putting it to Parliament to look at it. So we are also looking at support the formation of women businesses and enterprise organization and cooperatives. We have realized that the previous Raja has said that there are few financial microfinancial institutions in South Sudan, and indeed there are few percentage of that organization. If we look in maybe in Juba, these are the few that she has mentioned, but when we go outside Juba to other states, we don't get even one. So it's very important for us that as ministry, we need to encourage some of the organization to look into microfinance issues. And then we are also trying to see that one of the strategies is networking, and we are working on the 50 million women speak project that is supported by East African community, and this project is very important for us that women who are not legally registered, who doesn't have information, this platform will help all the women who are venturing into business or those who are already in business will get information just in their smartphones. Maybe we realize one of the challenges is that some of the women cannot use the smartphone, but this information can be carried out and they will be taught in training. So this is one of the important projects that will help women to get information in that platform, and also to share with the regional countries, the East African countries, even the southern countries. This platform is very, very important for women entrepreneurs. These are some of the strategies that as ministry we have put down, but our challenge is now the finance resources. Thank you, Margaret.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Jane, even for introducing us to this 50 million Speak project as a platform for women in business. I hope our listeners are also gaining information and will do a follow-up of this. And thank you so much also for highlighting the issues of why some of the policies are not implemented. It's the issue of lack of resources. And this question was put later by some of the audience, especially when Honorable Betty Ogwaro was mentioning the number of policies that are existing. So I'd like to, again, to Honorable Betty Ogwaro, especially on the issues of the existing policies and why some of them are not implemented. Jane has mentioned the issues of finances. Can you tell us if there are any more issues of why they are not implemented? And also, maybe you touched some issues on social norms, which some were mentioned by Raja in her presentation. So what are some of the social norms that contributes to women's limited access and ownership of productive resources in South Sudan? And what can the government do to change and discourage some of these norms in order to encourage some to participate in commercial agriculture, being an agriculturalist? Yeah, so if you can take us through some of these questions.
Well, thank you very much, Margaret. Yeah, some of the difficulties in implementing policies are related, I said earlier, with the weak public sector capacity. At the moment, South Sudan is concentrating on trying to implement the peace agreement and stopping the war, and not looking into policies that would enhance the production in South Sudan. And Jane also mentioned that funding has been very difficult. So you find that the government budget, which is allocated to every ministry, is not given to the ministry. Ministry of Agriculture gets 4% of its approved budget and 0.4% of the national budget. So it makes it difficult to implement policies that they put down. But it is important that these policies are there so that when environment is right, then it can be used. And I can tell you the reason why, as a Minister of Agriculture in 2011, I started on the journey of making the comprehensive agriculture master plan. It's because all our development partners were saying South Sudan does not have policies. And if they have policies, those policies, they are overdue and they are not renewed, or they don't look at it. So we agreed that we make a master plan that all the partners who are coming to support South Sudan in agriculture will see themselves in it and will be working from it. So all these development partners who are in South Sudan and working in livelihood, they are supposed to use the master plan to implement whatever policy and the money they brought in. Now, if I move on to your question of what are some of the social norms that contribute to women's limited access and ownership of productive resources. I think we are very well aware that South Sudan is a male-dominated country, not only in governance, but also at the traditional sector. So while we are a fraternity country, the male dominance does not even give women the voice and the choice. So women are relegated to the back, although they are the people who are working hard in agriculture. And there are 60% of the population that tilt the land and manage the resources on the ground. And then my colleagues here are talking of microfinancing. There's no microfinancing that has reached the women. There have been some little, what I could call some financing by organizations like BRAC, but to me it was meaningless, because when I visited the women on the ground and looked at the microfinancings facilitated by institutions like BRAC, it was not even enough for the women farmers to improve their farming. Because for the women farmers to improve their farming, they need to improve their knowledge of the farming. They need to improve the tools they're using for farming. We cannot still be using hoes, which were used by our great-great-great-great-grandfathers, and we expect to improve in agriculture. And these grants, this microfinancing, I was asking them, is it a grant to the women or a credit? When they loan money to the women, such little money, they give a condition for this money to be paid back immediately, starting from a month after the women receive the loan. But even the fruits of agriculture takes more than 3 months to be ripe and sold. So how can this help the women? And I found out that some women, they get the money, but instead of using it in improving their agriculture, they keep the money and start paying back, so that they build on their credit and next year they can get more money. So I tell the microfinancing institutions to improve and look at a better way of supporting women in agriculture. And we also, when we look at the tools, there are people who think tools like tractors are only for men, and women should use only hoes. So this male thinking also needs to change, that women can as well manage tractors and manage fields of tractors. But also improving agriculture by increasing acreages means we have to look at the labor. Labor is very expensive. At the moment, South Sudan is a rain-fed agriculture, and it is depending on the subsistence farming, which means the labor comes from the family only. So we also have to look at how we can improve the machineries of not only cultivation, but also of planting, of weeding, of harvesting, and also of drying and storage. And that takes me to the support to women in storage. When women are not supported by proper storage, whatever they produce is wasted, because half of them either get rotten or they get eaten by rats because of poor post-harvest. So when we look at improving women, we have to look beyond just putting seeds on the ground. And we also last time talked about access to land. Women, yes, they can cultivate, they can access land, but they don't own the land. So they can be asked to move from one place to another, or one place from 1 year to another, that makes the women get exhausted all the time clearing land instead of now improving on the land which they have used. So land's right must be secured, and women needs to have land papers which secure them the land. However, the government of South Sudan up to now does not have the ways of securing agricultural land. Only the residential lands where people have papers that they can have entitlement. But the agricultural land of South Sudan, so far, it is left to the communities, except when we have commercial farming like in Rank or in a wheel rice scheme. In a wheel rice scheme, the community do not have, they have access to the land, but they do not have ownership of the irrigated land. So they come and borrow from the government the land, they till the land for 2 years, then every 2 years they have to make agreement with the land, with the government. In Rank, where there is a commercial agriculture, and this is a system that was established by the Sudan, women are not accessing the land as much as the men. During the national dialogue, women completely complained that they in a will, they are not given the loan, they are not given credit, they are not given tools, they are not given seeds. Either if they are given seeds, they are given seeds later after the men have already received the seeds, and they plant late. So this male domination of men in South Sudan really needs to be changed. They should look at women as the producers and improvers of agriculture and food on the table. We also have very weak entrepreneurship basis. In South Sudan, actually, people go into entrepreneur on a hit and run. There's no proper system that people go through it, and it is established, it can be checked, it can be audited, so that it can tell the farmer that you are doing well this year or you have failed in this year. No, people just do a hit and run entrepreneurship. There is also complete weak market information system. Often when you talk about market information system, you talk about markets that have competitive markets, so that the farmer have the choice of where they can take their goods and get better prices. But in Sudan, because there is a lot of scarcity, people just take their things into the market and it is purchased and they are comfortable with it. So the extension officers of the Ministry of Agriculture, instead of training and creating cooperative links that the women or the farmers can get their information through these cooperative links, and they would know in which market the price is better than the other market, and they can take their things there and get more money. This is missing, completely missing. People don't see it as necessary because the little that is being produced is actually being consumed. So at the moment, we don't have that competitive market, so the system is not developed. And we also have very weak farmer producer organization. When we talk of agriculture, we must look at the whole chain. We have to look at the producers, but we also have to look at the farmers who also process and sell the processed food. And we also have to look at those who are linking the production area and the market area, the infrastructure of the transport. All these are linked to agriculture. We have complete weak linkages of the farmer on the ground, the transporter in the middle, and the market at the end, plus the consumer. These are completely missing. So commercial farming for women is, yes, I can see that women are coming up in the upper part of South Sudan, like in Rank area. Women have taken up very seriously to compete with men, but they still suffer the dominance of men, and they don't get the resources equally to men. So their production is lower because they cultivate less acreages. In the other part of rain-fed agriculture, commercial farming is still very, very low. A few women started commercial farming, but they also met difficulties because they couldn't afford the labor, or also the processing became difficult. So all these policies need to be implemented to help the women go into commercial farming, because the subsistence agriculture is not going to help the women alone. But we should also be aware that if we want to go commercial farming, we must know that there should be enough energy, electricity, to manage the commercial farming, because whatever you produce, if you are harvesting it during the rainy season, you need a better storage that you can dry it inside rather than outside. But drying inside means you should have energy. Now we are all running generators in our homes. In the rural areas, there are no generators, there are no even electricity. So there is need for the improvement of energy for agricultural production. We also want to say that funding is actually the most important thing in improving agriculture. If you don't fund the farmer, you cannot talk of increasing productivity. So at the moment, we don't have inadequate farming funding for the ministry, even alone, trying to think of the farmers. There's no system. We have the Agricultural Bank of South Sudan. We have the Cooperative Bank of South Sudan. Now, these two banks, they want collaterals before they can give funding to farmers. And women are
Can you unmute?
Is, where is your husband? I am a woman who is a farmer. Must I depend on my husband? Or you should ask me, where is the collateral that can allow the bank to give you the loan? So the issue of funding is very crucial, and that needs really a critical look at by the government. My colleagues have talked about training. They have talked about improved seeds. They have talked about infrastructure, the roads. Without roads, agriculture is nothing. Actually, road is agriculture. So if you are going to improve road, you have to improve. Going to improve agriculture, you have to improve road. And also, my colleagues have talked about the private sector, because agriculture really is driven by the private sector. And the private sector is the key driver of inclusive growth and job creation. So without this, it is going to be very difficult. South Sudan need to now look at the Addis Ababa Action Agenda, which talks about financing for development. They also need to look at the Paris Declaration, which is linked to the Agenda 2030. Even the Addis Ababa Action Agenda is linked to the Agenda 2030, which talks of financing for development. And within this financing for development, there should be financing for agriculture. I will stop here. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Honorable Betty. And just a follow-up, briefly, can you kind of briefly tell us how does the following hinders women participation in commercial agriculture in South Sudan? This question is a question that I'm going to ask just before the final question. So how does the following hinders women participation in commercial agriculture in South Sudan? A, weak entrepreneurship based and absence of commercial farming. B, weak markets and non-existing markets information system. And then there is this issue of lack of microfinance, and then weak farmers and producers organizations. Briefly, Honorable. Over to you.
Yeah, I thought I handled those, but I will go back to them. Weak entrepreneurship base hinders women's participation, because if there's no entrepreneurship, women have no entrance. They have no the point of entrance into improved agriculture. And now that it is weak, so it will only survive with the fittest. and the women are not the fittest in the competitive world. So weak entrepreneurship actually hinders women participation in commercial agriculture. Commercial agriculture needs a lot of funding, and it needs a lot of better management. So if the entrepreneurship is weak, it means there's no money that will come in. It means the management of the farm will be very poor. It means even the productivity itself is poor. And women get discouraged often if they cannot forge their way forward. The absence of commercial farming. Commercial farming enhances women to get more choice and voice because they will get more resources, they'll get more money, and they get better. So in the absence of commercial farming, and they continue to do the little rain-fed subsistence farming, it will hinder their participation in agriculture. But how can women enter into commercial farming when the government does not have proper policy of commercial farming? I stated earlier that the only commercial farming that has a proper policy in South Sudan is the rank DORA and agricultural scheme, because this was already established by the government of Sudan when we became a country. We inherited it. So they already have a laid down how many fedans a person can have, and they will also give you the seeds you buy from a specific dealer. They also have already a cooperative system where the produce is purchased right away from the farm by the cooperative system and sold for the farm. So if the women are not in that type of commercial farming, it hinders them in agricultural production. This is missing in the rest of the South Sudan. Even in Awil, where we have the big farming in rice scheme, the farmers formed a cooperative farming among themselves. The government is supporting them so that what produce they get from there, the government will mill it and thrash it for them, and then they can take it to the market. We have another type of commercial farming, which is not tilling the land, but dealing with the byproducts, especially the gum arabic. But the gum arabic is a farming for men. I have not heard of women who have ventured into that. It is only men who harvest the gum, and then they have a cooperative society through where they sell, and mainly they sell to the Republic of Sudan. And women have not ventured into it. We have been trying to encourage women to go into another type of farming, which is also a byproduct farming, like the lulu and the honey business. The men can harvest the honey, but the women need to buy it off the men so that they become the sole seller of honey. The lulu business is a women business, but the women have not expanded it to a bigger business yet. There are here and there lulu cooperative societies, but they have not expanded into a real market where they can sell the produce and gain. The weak market and non-existent of market information system I talked about earlier, that in South Sudan, our markets are random. We don't have organized markets. Like, for example, you can say, if I go to Konyo Konyo, that is a Dora market. If I go to customs, that is a maize market. Or if I go to another market, that is a Sim market. No, that is not. Our market is random and it is all mixed up. So you'll find that in the market, there are all type of produce and brought by different people, and they sell them at different prices. So the market is very weak in South Sudan. And I said also earlier, market information system normally goes with an organized market and where there are competitions. In our markets in South Sudan, because there is scarcity, there are no competitions. The little that is brought to the market is always bought. Market information system will work where there are competitions so that the farmer, right from the farm, is told which market will sell better for him. So he will not waste time to come to Juba and then go looking around in Konyo Konyo or or a Suklibia or where, he will go straight away to that market where he knows he will sell better. But this is also linked to extension services, which is very weak in South Sudan, and it is also linked to cooperative society, which also, I must say, is very weak in South Sudan. It used to be there, but it is no longer there. And then lack of microfinancing, I said earlier, microfinancing is good, but if the women want to go in commercial agriculture, they should go macro-financing, not microfinancing. And for women to go macro-financing, the women have to have the collaterals that the bank can take in order to give them the large amount of funding to increase their productivity. Where will women get collaterals? The women who own land with titles are very few, and most of them they are not in agricultural farming. Most of them are doing other type of business. The women who are doing agriculture are in the rural areas. They don't have titles to any land that they can give as a collateral. They don't have money in any bank that they can match with as a collateral for a macrofinancing. So microfinancing is not going to promote women. Microfinancing will keep women poor, and they will remain where they are. We need to move out. We need to stop thinking that women cannot do better. We need to stop thinking that women are not educated, so they cannot manage microfinancing. It's not about classroom education. It's about hand-on-the-job education. And the women are good at it. And then the last one is the weak farmer and producer organization. When you ask about weak farmer and producer, we need to define what do you mean by a farmer and what do you mean by a producer. Because a producer can be a farmer, but not a producer is not necessarily a retailer. So unless we are talking about the weak organization between the farmer and producers and the retailers that can help the outlet from the farm to the market. Either they sell at the farm gate price so that they don't have to trouble themselves to come to the market, that there is a middleman in between that will bring their produce to the market, or they will become the farmer, the producer, and also the seller. And that is where also the energy of women is always wasted. If you see the women who are bringing produce to the market, it is the women who produce, for example, cassava or potatoes or dora, and then they thresh them, they dry them, they put them in sacks, and they put them in the lorry and come to the market. But that is the time wasted is the money. So if we have in between those who can buy from the farm gate, the women will then go on to do other things after they have sold out. And then the people who buy from the farm gate, they don't have the time to spend producing. They only have the time to sell what is produced. So everybody here will become a winner. But at the moment, almost the women are a loser. Because they spend so much time producing, and then they spend so much time looking for the market. They spend so much time sitting in the market to sell. So this organization between farmers and the retail needs to be improved, and it needs training. It needs building up. The Ministry of Agriculture needs to strengthen the extension services for this to happen.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Honorable Betty. One of the key messages that is coming out from the discussion is that it is time for us to walk the talk, and walking the talk comes in many ways. Implementation of the peace agreement that has a lot of opportunities for women economic empowerment is one, and then encouraging women to move further from micro to macro economies, and then also there is this issue that you mentioned earlier, that microfinancing should not be like the limit. We should move forward to micro and big projects. And I like what you say, that women should not fear managing tractors. There's this understanding that tractors are managed by men, but women should move further on that. Another key message that is coming out is that private sector involvement in policies is also key, and that there is a need also for improved coordinated efforts between partners and the government, and that women has access to credit is a very important element. And then when women have access to credit, that will boost the economy. So a lot of good messages, key messages are coming out from the discussion, and we have a few minutes remaining for us to conclude our discussion. And I would like to go back to Ms. Martha. Ms. Martha, before you give us your concluding remarks, a lot has been mentioned about the private sector as an important component of economic development, in the empowerment of women economically in South Sudan. Would like you to tell us what strategies do you think South Sudan can use to encourage and include women in informal sector? And then you take us immediately to some of the challenges and what are your recommendations for moving forward. Over to you, Martha.
Yeah, thank you very much, Honorable Margaret Matia. I appreciate the discussion as most of the points were already spoken by Honorable Betty Acham. Indeed, private sector is one of the most important engine for economic growth and development. I may say that, yes. Yes, I have already spoke about them before, but I can just give them the hint a little bit. Yes. Are you getting me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay. So, as I said, yes, private sector is one of the key prominent indicators of economic growth and development. Let's see the situation where this country is moving. When you see South Sudan economy now, we don't have a concrete and a strong private sectors that have come up to compete. If you just look into most of the private sectors are foreign owned, and at the same time they offer a high elaborative in terms of what we call indicative ceiling in terms of loan premises. So when they are offering loans to different group of sectors, they presumed to offer loans in the high interest rate, which cannot actually boost the scheme of development in terms of women enterprise or private small enterprise funding. Now, when I say that where can we actually boost we have to be skeptical, train our personnel, and then let them not copy and paste. Be creative, see an avenue whereby you can run your own business. If Rebecca is doing a business of honey, let me also create a honey cactus to at least for Rebecca to enhance that. Or I create, or I import, or I buy a small tin where Rebecca can use to keep her honey in that, but not competing with Rebecca that I can do the same thing that Rebecca is doing. So competition sometimes in the same activities or in the same goods create an avenue of losses. So private sector involvement in policies of the country may actually improve the growth. Let's see also the government sector. I have not seen when it is written in development plan, yes, South Sudan development strategy, that there is involvement of private sector. But again, what they actually contribute, we are not seeing the contribution much there, although they are funding some of the projects. But we cannot leave everything to the government. Private sector contribute much to the GDP of the country. So we should revise our national development strategy and let it be implemented. Private sector actually is one of the key prominent, as I spoke before. Employment sector here is very high in the South. Unemployment sector is avenue to be one of the policies that can become. So if you, or if South Sudan see and look into expanding the private sector, it can increase the job and actually increase the GDP in the country.
Okay,
and I think I may end there because I have mentioned a lot of challenges before in the discussion. So thank you very much.
Yeah, but any recommendation for the way forward, Martha?
Yes, of course. Private sectors, yes, should at least we should make sure that all these sectors which are coming up, the government should not see, and then we'll see that high tax should be left to them. No, I may say they should be given a tax incentive. For example, women, they should be liberated from the poverty that they are in. They should be encouraged by giving them a tax holiday in their businesses so that they operate freely. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. We move to Jane Kiden from the Ministry of Gender. Jane, any recommendations for moving forward on the subjects that we have discussed? Jane? It seems, Jane, can you hear me?
Yes, Margaret, are you hearing me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, I just want to add into some of the challenges that are already been spoken. One of the challenges, lack of regional and international networks that are very important for some of our business women to go outside and also see what other people are doing. And then lack of business professional skills and capacity to manage businesses. These are some of the challenges that I'm seeing that I need to add into the previous speakers. Gender equality issues are centered on inequality. That is what Honorable Betty has talked on some of the norms. To include one of the norms is, the mindset of men when women are traveling outside, like for this trade border business, they are not happy. And they don't feel that they don't trust their women actually. And this makes some of the women, even if she has interest to go and bring something from outside, it is a challenge for them. So we need to be working on some of these norms to change the mindset of our fellow men. So we recommend that private sector, that is commercial banks, should support women organizations as grantors, because it's very difficult for women to get, as Betty said, to get loans from the bank. But if they go through the organization and this organization will represent the women, it will help the women to get some loans or some grants from the organization. We are also looking at adoption of gender responsive macroeconomic policies and undertaking specific and targeted intervention for women economic empowerment so as to redressing the prevailing situation where women cannot get support or they cannot be trained or they cannot they don't have skills. This one will help. And then the final recommendation that I want to give is government and partners support to the Women Enterprise Development Fund that we are developing. Seeing this one is a very good advantage if we have this established and money from private sector and government is powered there, then women will have opportunity to have support for their micro, small, and medium enterprises. And yes, this is very important. And well, capacity building is the most. I thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. And we move to Ms. Final remarks on the way forward, and it should be followed by Honorable Betty Moya.
Okay, thank you very much. I just want to add 1 or 2 points on the challenges. One of the challenge is that the high illiteracy rate among the women to keep records of their businesses. And then the last challenge is, of course, the conflict that we are in, and this will actually have a negative impact on uh, women economic empowerment. So I agree with most of the points that are recommendations put forward by my fellow panelists, and I just want to add some few into that. In my opinion, I encourage the women to form the village saving and loan associations because this is a model that is actually effective at the moment. So all women of South Sudan at different corners, they should continue with this model because this is sustainable. It is, the capital is generated among the members of the groups. Then already Jane and Honorable Beto Chan mentioned the formation of the women agricultural cooperative societies, to provide women with land, although land is an issue here where women in South Sudan don't have rights to inherit land, but still we have to continue with the struggle. And of course, one day we'll be the owners of the land. As mentioned in the revitalized peace agreement, I really highly recommend that the revitalized transitional government of national unity should expedite the Women Enterprise Fund as per the agreement in Chapter 4. And there should be modalities on how these funds should reach to the rural women that are really in need of these funds. Promotion, of course, as I mentioned earlier on, that literacy is one of the challenges that we have. Therefore, I feel that the women should be actually given knowledge and skills in their own language, because they might not understand English or Arabic. So the churches, the traditional leaders, whoever is the leader, they should actually translate these policies into the local languages so that these women understand the content of these policies and how to proceed with the women economic empowerment agenda. So enforcement of the policies and laws and regulations that combine the role of women in bringing up the children bearing, breastfeeding, and child rearing with participation at the labor cost. So how can we balance our role as mothers in relation to the role in the labor market or in the private sector? So this should be very, very clear, and this goes to the government or the Ministry of Gender to spell out this to all women. Um, the recommendation of the Commerce Bank has already been mentioned by the previous speakers, but I would also add the mobile money technologies like the M-Grus and the NilePay. The women in the rural areas should be able to register. I know it is very difficult, But if they register in these apps, it is very easy, to access the information from the market and even payment. You can send an order that, okay, I have maybe beans, I have cassava, and then send me the payment. They can be paid through these applications. So this is another effective tools that can be used by the women, and of course, provision of access to justice. And above all, political stability is a necessity to all this. Without this, then the agenda will not be achieved. So therefore, I can conclude that women economic empowerment is an important concept that needs attention of all stakeholders, starting from the government, the civil society organization, the private sector in the country. And I urge the senior female government officials to give a priority to women empowerment and initiate visits to grassroots women groups, because when they see the senior female government officials, they are really happy, and they have the courage, they have the confidence. So I can conclude by a quote from Kofi Annan, as he says, there is no tool for development more effective than the empowerment of women. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Then we move to Honorable Betty Moyo, and then there is a special request that you can do your recommendation in Arabic and some of the challenges. Baba? Your mic is muted, Honorable Betty. Kindly unmute so that we can hear you.
Yeah. Hello. There are some, I hope you can hear me, Martha.
Yes, I can.
Okay. There are some key messages, 3 key messages that are important. I thought we should share it. For example, number 1, microfinance, Tumuila Sagera. So this Tumuila Sagera is not a free money, as some people might have thought. And even with that Women Enterprise Development Fund, these are not free money. These money are meant for, these are credit, these are loan. They are meant for hardworking women that do not have, access to money from the bank, for example. Most of them don't have collateral. In lending, lending policies all over the world, it's a standard. Unless we come up in our own solution, then we will learn it, we will give some name. We'll not call it microfinance, because microfinance is credit. So this is just to make things clear. Like it's a conventional standard, they are standard. This money is meant for those who do not have collateral. The other thing is women economic empowerment is not only things like microfinance. It's also for medium businesses, women who can go to the banks, and also for large scale businesses. We have those of Achai Awir, he mashallah, she's good she has a big scale this business. She has a different types of businesses, and she's really doing well. So it is 3 levels women economic empowerment. So the other big businesses, they will only need training sometimes, but our focus is on microfinance, because of the reasons we gave, that they are the majority, the people in the rural, and they are really, most of them are poorer. So these are the key challenges I thought we should share. Now coming to challenges, I will just, most of them have been said, like instability. This is a big challenge, because economic empowerment is a process. The result is seen from 5 years upward. It takes time to be realized. The really growth in the economy is realized after some while. It's a physical long-term economic planning. So instability is a challenge. Economic recession, like slum, when the economy is not doing well, like recently COVID-19. These are all things that affect such kind of things like microfinance, women economic empowerment, because the institutions that are providing money will not have money. Things like in South Sudan, there is collapse of most microfinance credit institutions. I don't even know if they exist anymore. I remember one of my colleagues was saying she's crying because microfinance institutions were collapsing. That was in the bank many years ago. I still remember that. And I told her that will affect the economy after many years. We'll find ourselves very vulnerable. And I think it was this particular time. So financial barriers is a challenge. Financial barriers is like lack of awareness. There are women, they have all the ability, but they don't know how to start even going to look for fund. They don't know which category they fall. If you have a land, you automatically fall into a category of going to the bank. You can get better money from there. So this is a barrier. Like they need awareness, and things like some even they don't know borrowing. You know, they don't know what are required for them to borrow money. Some of them even don't have bank accounts and they have money, a lot of money in the house. Some of them don't know how to use mobile phone money and a lot of things. And most women have time spent on unpaid household cares, you know. Most of them are working, cooking in their houses. This is a challenge for them to move in business too. They need to time themselves. Already education barriers are mentioned, school dropouts, early marriages, you know, early pregnancy, lack of sponsorship, unemployment, no enough skills and trainings. These are all educational barriers. Legal barriers is a challenge too. These are things like, you know, passing and implementing the legislations that protects women. Sometimes they end up without implementation. It end up like a policy. So that was why I keep on saying, let's walk the talk. Things like cultural norms, someone already mentioned it before. Let me go ahead. There is also, yeah, we cannot leave the fact that there had been negligence by the authority. You know, we came as South Sudan in 2006. Those of Mary Kiden, I still thank her so much. She tried her level best, but it was better. So there was negligence by the authority because like we would have been already in another level, at least not in women economic empowerment, which came in 2015, but at least we would have already gone ahead by microfinance credit institutions. So we are lacking really so behind. Things like some funding, which are meant for economic empowerment, mostly end in urban centers. You see, urban centers. So these are all challenges. Even poor capacity in institutions which are supposed to implement this microfinance, whatever women economic empowerment, some of them know even themselves that they have problem of capacity. So let me go for recommendation. Someone is just saying recommendation, please. So in our recommendations, number one, we need 3 to 2%. 3 to 2% of national budget be allocated for women economic empowerment. And this has to take place in this fiscal year of this July 2021 to June 2022. So we have to ensure that one goes into the budget. Secondly, we need the relevant development partners. They should contribute for funding of these women economic empowerment institutions or whatever, like microfinance, women development enterprises. They need to help the women, not at their levels in their organizations. They need also to come and do something and give it forward to the relevant bodies that will be dealing with women economic empowerment. We need, in my recommendation, I will also say we need to make awareness to inform the public that women development enterprise fund or microfinance is not a free money. That is very important. It is not a grant. There is difference between loan and grant. Grant can come, it has to be clear something else. But we are talking of hardworking women who want to do business but they don't have money. So it's not like you give somebody grant and keep quiet with it. It has been a common practice. So if there is grant, we are not prohibiting it. So they should let grant come on its own, but it cannot be under this women, the one we are talking about, because this is a standard. We need to make awareness even to the authority itself about the role of or long-term impact of microcredit funding, because it has a good economic growth in future. The authority needs to know. We need to revitalize the microfinance credit institutions that have already collapsed. We need to train women on borrowing for businesses, opening accounts, as we said before. We promote girl child education. Number 9, we said women should be involved in strategic economic policy making and annual economic policy decisions in the country. Very few, some of us were involved in those when we were in those institutions. Like you will be sent when you are lucky. Today, go and represent us when they are trying to do these annual budgets. But as a small staff, that time you will not be able to influence. So we need this one. Women have to be to be around as a women group, not as individuals, when they are going to attend this economic policy making, because it affects them more. They are 60% of the population. It's just like a sickness. 60% of the body is sick. Number 10, we need formation of clear, establishment of clear mechanism for implementation of women economic empowerment. The mechanism should be well guided by principles and accountability. In number 11, we need to establish a high-level women enterprise development fund, as in accordance to the peace agreement. That enterprise development fund is the one to implement this women economic program. Number 12, we need to develop a micro, small, and medium enterprises, by the way, at the rural population. Someone had said it before. And even at the urban population, which are poor, those who also, they are in need of money. Maybe they want to make tea, most common business. They want to make tea, they want to open small shops. They have multifaceted types of businesses. Some want to do restaurants, small-scale restaurants. So the urban microfinance is different, or the urban credit need is different. It's not like the rural, which is mostly for agriculture. The rural is mostly for agriculture, whatever, whether it is chicken or what, fish and all this, most of them in the rural. But in the urban center, their type of need is different. It is multi-purpose. So we need to take all this into consideration. Number 13, the Women Enterprise Development Fund should identify microfinance credit institutions, the private ones. Why I'm saying the private sector ones? Because we don't want a situation of politicizing development. And this is where we can fall back so badly. So we want it to be handled by private sector. Yeah, there is a system how they can identify without any other thing, without any other, and it has to go across the 10 states to the counties and Payam grassroots. It should not just start from the top bottom. No, it should be from the bottom to the top, from the Payam's level. And we said before, we want to do like a cultivation. When you are cultivating, you don't cultivate one place, but the whole place that you have cleared the bushes, So let's approach it like that. أنا قلت لكم مرة جاي لما نعمل هنا presentations with that training. Private sector need to steer up this process, on business and credit management, to vulnerable businesses. They need to orient female members of the society. Number 15, the Women Enterprise Fund should be shared equally. I said it over the 10 states. There is no state that should take more, There is no state that should take more fund because of any other reason. It has to be equally and equitably. Unless if we are using population, because economics go with population. If we have proof of not fraudulent population, because I say let's leave politics aside. If we have proof of a population in a certain place, then this is where we can calculate according to the population. That time people will come up with all the mechanism. Number 16, we need to establish transparent and accountable institutional policies and procedures for a fully functional and a sustainable women economic empowerment and women enterprise development fund. We need sustainability at the end of the day. We don't need it to be like money all the time, and we will not be able. We want to see the growth, not just money being there, but it has to make some impact. I think I'm done already. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
I'm told their time. Shukran alaikum. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Honorable Betty Moya. And I'm going to give the final word, final remarks to Honorable Betty Aguero on the way forward. Over to you, Honorable Betty.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think Honorable Betty Moya and the rest of the team have already given almost all the recommendations that are necessary. I can only add one or two things. That the the most important thing for South Sudan is to have peace and political stability. Agriculture goes with peace and political stability. Secondly, both women and men have to change their mindsets. Men should look at women as agents of change, and government should look at women as tools for change. So it means they need to empower women, especially to promote the women from micro agriculture to medium-sized agriculture and to macro-sized agriculture, so that at least we can realize something. Thirdly, somebody talked about SACCOs, the savings and credits. I think women need to begin thinking about the SACCOs, because the Cooperative Bank of South Sudan have the facilities for SACCOs and to help farmers and any other business person or group of people who are actually in a SACCO business. And then I want to greet everybody, and I want our women not to give up, to aim high. Please aim high. It is not about classroom education. It's about experience on the soil. It's about being given facilities to expand. Thank you. I'm done.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so I'm saying thank you very much for all your contributions. You have really demonstrated today that South Sudanese women have a wealth of experience in the area of economic empowerment. And this statement that we always have, that we are not Mama Sakit, is really true. And I have learned a lot personally from this discussion. Some of the recommendations that are coming out from the discussion is that the government of South Sudan and international partners should focus on empowering South Sudanese women through meeting their basic economic needs and ensuring their inputs into decision-making in the economic sector. Another thing is that learning from best practices elsewhere. Some of the panelists spoke about experiences of Uganda and other countries. So learning from best practices elsewhere in shaping economic policies that takes the specific context of South Sudan into account is important. Another recommendation is that support South Sudanese women accumulation and control of assets such as title to the land or homes is also key. And then strengthening South Sudanese women economic participation through increased connectivity to active markets, including infrastructure projects such as building roads and transport is very, very important. And then also to ensure that women's equal access to economic opportunities and the removal of barriers to women's entry into the workforce and support an expanded role for women in agricultural sector. Yeah, the government should also ensure that women access to decision making in the national economy and is there a removal of obstacles to their participation in it, in the public and the private sector and in the informal economy. A number of strategies were also mentioned by the panelists, and because of time, I'm not going to go much into that, but I just want to take this opportunity to thank all those who joined us in this discussion, those who sent their comments. We hope we have answered some of the comments that you have asked. And we also appreciate the panelists for joining us today and for sharing their insight on how to move women economic empowerment agenda forward in South Sudan. Today is Saturday, but they have sacrificed their time. So I also want to appreciate you and women for hosting the forum. Internet connectivity in South Sudan is a challenge, and so we thank you and women for that. Finally, I also want to appreciate the South Sudanese Women Intellectual Forum for giving me this opportunity to moderate the discussion. And I wish you all a good evening and a good day for those who are in a different time zone. Thank you very much, and have a good night for those who are here with us in South Sudan.